Welcome to our podcast, Doing It Right. This podcast reveals authentic stories from successful leaders doing it right. It's about their journey to become a leader, their choices, motivations, and lessons. In essence, how they built successful personal brands. Your host is Valerie Sokolosky, author of 8 leadership books and nationally known as an authority on executive presence and personal branding. Let's get started. Here's Valerie.
Well, hi and welcome again. And oh boy, do I have a jam-packed show today with 3 gentlemen that I hope I can rein in because they're so used to talking. Let me tell you about them. This is going to be a show of 3 men, entrepreneurs extraordinaire, who have come together and put together a 24-hour live stream content platform with 2 shows. One is Mojo 50, which you'll hear about, and the other, a cooking show, kind of, sort of, Spoony, everything about food. So I want to introduce all 3 and tell you a little bit about them, and then I probably will have to shut up because I think they'll just take over. All right. Well, first we have Doc Thompson, who actually I met you, Doc, when you had me on the show, and this is so crazy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Remember about a year and a half ago? You remember what we talked about?
I do. We talked about lasagna. Oh, that was just a couple of minutes ago. On that show, no, I don't recall.
See, what did I tell you? I may not say a word. Doc has been, goodness, for over 25 years, right?
Yeah, it's 30. 30?
Okay,
yeah.
Well, you said it. I didn't, so that's okay. A woman would never do that. You know that. But hosting now on Doc Thompson's daily Mojo 50 show from 6 to 9 a.m.
That's Eastern time, yep.
But, Doc, you're a political commentator, conservative. You've certainly been a guest on a lot of television shows and America's Voice News.com. You were on CNBC and The Blaze and the Glenn Beck Show and lots of awards. I read that you had 7 Marconi Radio Awards from the National Association.
The amount of money in bribes it took me for that is huge,
They did pay me to say that.
Yes, that's accurate. That is accurate.
And you know, I admire someone who literally, I don't know how you do it, but can talk that much, that long. I know you probably go through 5 bottles of water.
Just you just roll it out. I'm just at a point in my life, Valerie, just do it. You know, you're a parent. You're just like, I'll just do it. Okay.
You make it sound so easy. Well, we're going to learn more about you. And then we have Chef Patrick Mosher again, a host.
And he's sober today, which is nice.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, he may go through 5 bottles of water a day, but I go through 5 bottles of whiskey a week on the
I don't believe that. I don't believe that because I know you. But host and actually you come up with the program. You're the director as well for Spoony.
Yeah, so I'm the program director and the curator of Spoony Radio, 24-hour food talk radio.
That's amazing. Again, 30-year executive chef turned media personality. Good-looking personality.
So far, we're turned wannabe media personality. Yeah.
I think you're doing it. You're already doing it. But you also have been consulting for many years all over the world, lots in Japan, and the national restaurant that I love so much, and you started it. Tell me the name of it again.
Well, I didn't start it, but I was a part of Nobu. I worked with Nobu for a long time, yeah.
If you haven't tried Nobu, you need to try that. And your expertise is in the design and the food and the menu and the engineering and
the operations and systems that give first-time operators the chance to succeed, as opposed to doing it themselves.
Like from everything, literally. I mean, when he told me everything that he did as a consultant.
Ideation to open, basically, yeah.
With the mat on the floor and making sure that it's clean the next morning.
Yeah, and sleeping in the kitchen most of the time, yes.
And then, Tom, I think you keep these guys straight. Tom Trost, 20 years in sales and marketing, in Marcom experience, and you've had lots of experience in the media, in the radio, and that's how I met you, because you were head of sales at The Blaze, where you were, Doc. And so I met these 3 men, and through the years of knowing them, it was fascinating to me watching you 3 come together and start 2 shows, a platform. I mean, this is so huge. So I'm just going to throw it out there and say, Doc, to start with, how did you come up with this idea? What gave you the guts to leave a show and start your own platform?
Well, and thanks for recognizing that this was all my idea. Until it fails, and then it was Tom's idea. Now, it was actually a collaborative effort. Parts of this, Tom and I started talking about years ago. Before that, Patrick and I had talked about other parts of it, and some of our other partners and I, in different combinations, had discussed pieces of it. And when we decided to do it, we didn't have a full grasp of what we were getting into, nor where we would go with it. And now we're here, and we're like, oh, okay. I guess this is the area we're heading. We're heading over there.
A couple of major understatements right there.
Yeah, some changes. I think, my years of interviewing entrepreneurs and business owners, I've learned that it's just you got to start somewhere. You probably will not finish where you thought you would. And you've got to be able to kind of roll with the changes. And that's really what we've ended up doing.
So, Chef, when you came into this, what were your expectations?
So Doc and I have been talking about the food service side and how to combine that with media for a few years now. And I was fortunate enough to get on his show a few times, and it turned into a weekly segment. Anyway, I wanted to do a 24-hour food talk radio platform, and I said, Doc, would you help me? And all of a sudden, we had several other partners, and we had expanded to 2 24-hour platforms with separate medium or separate content, and it was a steamroller. We started this really February of this year.
Not long ago.
Discussing.
Yeah.
We
that
didn't
was
get
our
on
first talk.
Yeah, we didn't get on the air until a couple months ago.
July, I guess. July or August.
And I have a passion for food. I just love food. It's one of the few joys in my life is eating. It's all I have left, Valerie. That's
Do
it.
you cook?
I cook a little bit, yeah, but I eat even more. And so Patrick and I will talk about stuff, and he's obviously passionate about food, but I mean, just you talking about your lasagna earlier, I'm like, damn it, I want to know why. She said hers is the best. What makes it good? What's good about it?
And you asked me, did I use ricotta? Yes. And cottage cheese.
Well,
and
you use ricotta too? Okay, because all right.
Absolutely.
That's a little secret there.
So you can see mine's the best.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll still reserve judgment
until you eat it.
Yeah,
that's okay.
I'm fishing for an invite.
I'm not afraid of cooking for you. I kind of am intimidated to cook for you.
He's not that good. Don't be afraid.
Just throw out a grilled cheese and some Campbell's tomato soup. I'm happy. Really happy.
That's probably true. I hear that sometimes from chefs. And then, Tom, so you had to come across to advertisers going out selling these things. And really, when you started, it was a non-entity. That to me is fascinating too. How did you get the word out? And you've already been successful.
Yeah, so the challenge was not necessarily selling, because I had the believability factor when I first met Doc a year and a half ago.
You bet.
And from that first day, we connected. And we would sit probably at least 2-3 times a week when we were first working together and come up with brainstorming ideas on clients, on packages to sell clients, and campaigns, and how to do things differently. And it didn't really work out and wasn't really accepted by our former organization. So when I left there and Doc said, don't go anywhere, I got something for you. And 2 weeks later, we were back together working. And then I met Patrick. Well, I had met Patrick also when he was working with Doc earlier. So it was really easy from that standpoint. So I believed in the concept, doing something different. We saw things that we all had experienced that worked, but we also saw many things that didn't work in the media business. And collaborating with ourselves and our few other partners, we just felt like, we have a better mousetrap. And here we are. It took us 4 months and 5 months working together, and now right after Labor Day, we kicked off, and we have 15 paid advertisers, and
it's amazing.
Growing our audience daily. So it's very exciting.
Do you have the numbers yet on the audience?
Well, we will at the end of 2 more weeks. We'll have it.
Yeah, it's in today's world, getting ratings or numbers on audiences is really difficult because you get them from so many different places.
That's true.
There is more accuracy quite often in some of the places than it used to be. It used to be you just said, "Hey, write down who you listen to." That was really what ratings were, and it was not accurate, and there was a lot of shady things going on across the board. But that's the best we had. Now you could determine how often people clicked or downloaded stuff. You don't know how intently they're listening and stuff, but that's where the advertisers come in It's really about return on investment when they advertise. You gave us money. We presented a campaign on the air. Did you see the return on your investment? And they do with us. We have a loyal audience. But we can give you some numbers on Mojo, which is our libertarian conservative talk format. It's mojo50.com. And just our 2 live shows that we have had for a couple of months, and we just expanded a couple more this week. But just those 2 6-hour programs are responsible for somewhere between 20 and 25,000 listeners across all the boards a day.
That's pretty good.
That's impressive for a launch. It's pretty good.
Bet.
Yeah.
Well,
and then Spoony is probably a step behind us, and we have virtually no numbers to report. We just haven't gotten them yet. Yeah.
Well,
and Valerie, if I can jump in from an advertiser perspective, their whole, and Doc mentioned that it's bottom line. Did they get their return on investment? Doc, like you used the example where if I asked you as an advertiser, would you pay me $1 million or $1,000 to advertise your product?
2 different numbers there.
Right. Okay. So let's just cut it in the middle, $100,000, right? And you'll probably say no. But if I said I got you $1 million for your $100,000, then you would probably say yes, I will, right? And so I met with a client this morning who told me they got 4x on their advertising spend. Wow. So they're very happy. They've been with me for the 3rd company I've worked for. I brought them over to our former company. Now they're with us at Mojo. They're on Spoony, and he just introduced us to another advertiser, brand new advertiser, who's coming on board in January. So it's building those relationships and getting results for the clients.
It's still about relationships.
Yeah, and also we're really fortunate that we have a big anchor. I mean, Doc's been in the business for a long time.
Exactly.
He's been very successful for the advertisers that he's had on all of his shows across all platforms. And so having that as an anchor and something that we can leverage, because Spoony's an untried, it's unknown territory. No one's ever done it. And be able to cross-promote that, one unidirectionally, and leverage his reach and the other show's reaches, it really makes a big difference.
So what's Spoony different? What's different about it than the Food Network and some of the other?
Well, what's different? First and foremost, it's pure talk radio. I mean, it's there. We do have some visual with it. If you watch Facebook Live, you can go to Spoony Radio on Facebook. But no one else does just food talk radio 24/7. So we don't just talk food. We talk nutrition, health, culture, a little bit of lifestyle choices, business. Well, we do a lot of business because that people take for granted that the restaurant industry is a social experiment. Hey, I'd love to have a restaurant so I can bring my friends in. Well, it's a business.
It's a hard business.
And that's why people, there's a high failure rate with restaurants.
So the center of it is food, and then the edges, if you expand out, is, and this is just something we're figuring out now, business, for example, and like he said, health and nutrition, agriculture, all of these things with food, and then culture and fun being at the center of it. But as far as what makes us different, nothing like this has been done. Whereas the Food Network, God bless them, they do a great job, but they're primarily cooking. We will do some of that too.
It's big name chefs and
or cooking competitions.
Right.
And then you've got some media, like print media stuff, like Delish and Southern Living and some others.
There's Heritage Radio Network, which is run by at PBS. Actually, they took their format that's Cooks, what is it, in the America's Test Kitchen, which they publish Cooks Illustrated. They took that format and they applied it to radio, but they only have a few hours of programming every day, Monday through Friday, and nothing on the weekends.
This is expanding it across the board. So
that's amazing. It's amazing. So talk to us about your show now.
My show?
Yes.
My show's pretty wild, Valerie. It's pretty crazy over the top there.
That's why I asked you to talk about it.
So here's what we've realized, and I am a staunch libertarian conservative in my views, and that's what the show.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, I think most people recognize conservative versus liberal, and that's pretty well established. Libertarian is I don't care what you do, just leave me alone. I mean, pretty much. It really is. Fiscally conservative, but when it comes to social issues, it's not that you endorse them. It's like, just leave me alone, and I'll leave you alone as long as you're not infringing somebody else's rights, and that's what we live. But we've realized, regardless of what perspective you have on stuff, if you watch most media or consume most media, whether it's radio, print, it's pretty horrible. right now. There's a lot of it
Divisive.
that is unwatchable, listenable. It's divisive, sure, but it's not entertaining.
No.
That's the bottom line. So you watch
On any side
It's
of the
on any side
of the issue.
It's disturbing.
So just recently, there's been some reports that some of the liberal media out there, that stuff that I, as far as viewpoints, wouldn't appreciate, Huffington Post, Mike.com, Vox, all of these, they're in financial trouble as well. And a lot of the conservative ones are. And the bottom line is they lost the center focus of what all of this is, and it is entertainment. You may have strong values and views, and you bring all this stuff to the table, and you're principled, and that's great. But if it's not entertaining, you're not even doing yourself any good if you're doing it for a message, because you've lost your audience. Entertain, number one, and if it is an entertainment platform that's based on bringing in revenue, if it's it's based on capitalism and it's for profit, you have to service the advertisers, and they're not doing any of that. So to answer your question, we do things different. First of all, we lead with humor. We only do 4 commercials an hour, and they're live commercials. So the advertiser gets a better return on their investment. And we are not politically correct. I realized something else in the world, that words have power when you give them power. So as much as I'm not out there in my normal, regular life trying to annoy people or give them, problems, if you say don't use certain words, all that does is make them more powerful and more sensitive.
That's interesting.
So we're not playing that game anymore. Come laugh at me. Let me laugh at you. We're Americans. Let's have a beer together. Let's get along. Let's leave each other alone. That's our platform. And we lead with humor.
And you've been very successful for a long, long time with that very thing. So broadcasting, so obviously I also came from broadcasting a few years ago. And, it's changed. I mean, what I studied in school and what it was, I don't know what they're teaching now. But doesn't that make it harder also to come up with something successful like you have in this new wild, crazy world that we're living in? And
well, you keep looking at me. I've never been to broadcast school, so I was a clean slate. Thanks to Doc, I've learned it his way.
No, you're right, but I'm debating. Do I give everybody the secret? All right, why not? People just steal it anyway. It's all cyclical. It all comes around again. There's nothing new under the sun. It's just slight variations on the themes as these things come back around. So what works in advertising now when it comes to on-air broadcasting? It's live endorsement commercials. It's telling a story and a tale from a trusted person who wouldn't lead you astray because you've listened to them, you know about them for years.
Trust them.
You trust them, and they weave it into content. That's what works now, and that's what we do.
okay.
That's what Johnny Carson did when he started. That's what all of these people did years ago when we went to recorded commercials. It's just come around slightly different, as it always is, but there's nothing new under the sun.
Now, do you either of you take calls as they come in?
Sometimes. We just don't focus on it. Calls are frosting. It's extra. It's not the meat of what you do. It has to be us entertaining. Then we use calls sometimes to kind of spice it up.
Now, I don't take a lot of calls at the moment. I do my interviews via phone call mostly, but later in the week, after we get past the end of this year, I'll open up the phone lines one day a week for about a half an hour, and we'll do something fun about, what do I make for dinner, where they tell us what's in, they give me a list of ingredients they have at home, and I try to help them make one recipe out of that doesn't take them hours and hours.
That will be fun.
Well, my son calls me every other day saying, Dad, I only have this in my refrigerator. What can I make with it, because I don't have any money left?
And you give him good answers of real
Usually.
things that you can do.
He gives him answers.
Sometimes he does not comment back when I say, how was it? But I'll just take it, look, is it silence is consent, right?
Right, exactly.
And Valerie, my wife will call me at 4 o'clock and say, is Patrick coming over for dinner? Because I don't know what we're having tonight.
Does that mean he's cooking for dinner, too?
Exactly.
What do you think is the future from your perspective, Tom, in terms of direction with advertising and matching advertising to an probably evolving shows?
Well, right now we're telling a story and we're selling sizzle as we're growing, but we do have a great foundation. So we're just trying to find the right advertiser that wants to jump on board with us and enjoy the ride with us.
And get success with
Yeah,
you. Oh.
yeah. But Valerie, you touched on something that Doc didn't touch on as far as taking phone calls. He just completed a 12-hour phone marathon 2 weeks ago.
For business, for our Black Friday marathon,
Yeah.
we give away free commercials.
Sat there for 12
right.
hours and
Heard
took
of
calls.
that.
And then I did a 3-hour show after that.
And Patrick was involved too.
And you're still talking.
Oh, yeah. I just did a 24-hour marathon once.
How do you
for
do
charity.
that? Seriously, how do you do that?
It is what it is. Again, as a parent, you just do it.
How do we shut them up? Formaldehyde and some rope. We set them in the corner.
Valerie, when I started out as a broadcaster, I'd go in, and the studio had to be just right. I'd adjust all the lights, the perfect brightness, and the temperature had to be within like 3 or 4 degrees, and everything perfect on the counter. And now I'm just like, where do you want me to stand? How long do you want me to talk? Okay.
I can do this. All right, so let's hear from each of you how you started. I was born, whatever you want to say.
I think Tom has the best story. Starting out as a ballroom dancer turned exotic dancer, and then into sales is a
But I
fascinating
wasn't very
story.
successful, so I sold
gotta be a
advertising
story.
for ballroom dancing.
How did you start?
I started selling advertising when I came out of college and stayed in that industry for my whole career. I've had...
hang on, I need to call foul on that.
Oh, okay.
He had a background in sales as a young lad, even in high school.
Yeah?
Yes, I knew he would sell things in high school. The legal stuff, not the other ones, Tom.
I did so.
What was the story about soap?
Oh, yeah. So Dad he was a general manager for a production company, and they manufactured high karate soap on a rope, if you remember that.
What? Say that again.
High karate.
soap on a rope.
Remember the high karate aftershave and
there's
cologne?
aftershave and cologne.
I'm too young
Of
to remember
course,
that.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, the factory burned down like 2 weeks before Christmas, but the product was still good, but they couldn't sell it to retail. So they allowed myself and my 2 brothers to go in there and take as much soap as we could. We went to high school the next week, and we sold for $1 a bar. They were giving it to their parents for Christmas. So that was my start, actually.
And the
Thank you,
salesman
Doc,
was
for
born.
reminding me.
See that?
They say salespeople are born salespeople.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I took my paper route from 50 houses to 72 houses in 1 year.
Isn't that
There it
So
is.
there you go.
That's
That's my
it.
story. I'm sticking to it.
What about you, Chef? How did you get into being a chef? I'm a foodie too, and I can't even imagine doing it 24/7.
I grew up in a family that was very self-sufficient food-wise. My father had a very large garden. My grandfather lived right up the road, and he harvested cattle in the winter. And we shared it among the family. We lived within a mile of each other, the entire family. And actually, my mother got very ill. My father passed away early. My mother got very ill and was ill the rest of her life and most of my life up until mid-adulthood. But I grew up, there were days when I was hungry, and I think psychologically speaking, that stuck with me, and I never wanted to be hungry again. But I started working at a Sizzler steakhouse, believe it or not, at about 14 years old in Tempe, Arizona. I was a dishwasher busser.
And you decided then you were going to be a chef?
No, but it was money. It paid for gas. So, car fume and perfumes had kicked in. So I needed gas money to get to and from school and on dates. But that's how it started out. And it tended to be a good living. And then I just fell in love with it. I actually quit a job in Japan to become a chef. So.
Tell us about the Japan experience. That sounded wonderful.
Well, I moved to Japan. A friend of mine that I'd gone to high school and college with, his parents owned a translation company there called TransTech International. Mm-hmm. And they asked why I'd never visited, and I didn't have the money. And if I'd gone there in my youth, I'd have spent 3 months, spent everything I'd ever saved, and come back with nothing, not even linguistic skills. So they said, well, when I was in college, they said, hey, why don't you come visit us? And I said, I can't. They sent a letter inviting me to come to Japan to work for them as a copywriter, and I got there, and about a year later, I quit to become a chef. So I love the food so much, I couldn't help myself.
You just have to have a passion, I think. Thank goodness all of us, all 4 of us, have passion for what we're doing, and a lot of people don't.
Valerie, before you go to Doc,
Okay.
Patrick's being humble. I heard him interview a Japanese business in Japanese a couple months ago.
Really?
No, I don't understand that.
Talk to us a little bit.
Nani yute hoshin desu ka?
I think so.
Yeah. So what would you like?
She already told you ricotta cheese and cottage cheese.
That's great. All of you are humble. Okay, Doc.
I actually worked in restaurants growing up. I worked at a country club and a couple of other restaurants. Thought I might actually be a chef. And just, I was always so bored growing up. I wasn't.
Really?
I look back now and I go, I just wasn't challenged. I was just bored. Got towards the end of my senior year in high school, within like a couple months before I graduated, and I was like, I really should come up with a plan that everyone else came up with and took tests a year ago. And my mom kept saying, there's a communication school in downtown Cleveland. You got to go and visit it. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. A buddy was late picking me up one day, and I'm watching TV, waiting for him, coat on, and I see a commercial come on for this broadcasting school, and I was like, I should really write their number down. But being lazy and bored, I was like, I'll get it next time. And there just happened to be a pen and pad there, so I wrote it down, and he was still late, so I called him. I don't even know why. And it was hard sell sales for the school to get people to go. So I was like, I was calling him. You have an appointment tomorrow at noon. Be here. Well, really, I was just going, nope, you'll be here. What's your name? We know where you are. Come here. We'll come. And I was like, okay, I guess. I mean, it was pretty much that bad. And I got there, and within just a couple of minutes, I really started falling in love with radio. And I was like, yeah, that's what I need to do.
Well, you've got a radio voice, so that's kind of cool.
A lot of that's just from late nights.
When we talked, I spoke with each of you independently, and you each made a point that part of what brought the three of you together and successfully working together has to do with you're of one tribe. And what do I mean by that? There's a lot of books out now and talk about find your tribe, and that just means it's nice when you can work with people that you know, like, and trust, and that you have the same values. And each of you shared with me not only your own values, but those for the show. So I'd love for each of you to kind of talk about, what are the values for the show? What do you all agree on you're trying to do in terms of that? And maybe some of your own thoughts about you've come to this point now in the industry you're in. For anybody listening, whether they want to be a talk show host or a salesperson or a chef or start a podcast, you've all experienced lots in that. What would you share with other people? So that's really two questions.
Valerie, I would like to say that from my perspective, find good people to work with and people that have an expertise that I don't have. Mm-hmm. And what I like about Doc and Patrick and the other guys we work with is that we all have something a little different we bring to the table, and we don't step on each other's toes. Doc knows what he's doing. Patrick knows. They leave me alone, and they leave producer Ron alone, and everybody does a great job that way. And when we have a question about it, we can talk about it, but it's like, you're the expert, you go do it.
We had, I think that low B.S. factor, we're all just so tired. It's like, I will not stand for any of that.
I like that.
I'm serious.
Have a low B.S. factor.
We actually, I have never suffered fools well, but now just no BS. I don't have time for drama. It's whatever, and everybody gets along. But we had a potential investor in the company. It was kind of a fringe thing, but somebody had mentioned, hey, this person may be interested in investing a little bit. And we're like, oh, okay. And someone goes, yeah, I heard that they kind of had a problem with one person that we know that's something. We're all just like, done, move on. I don't have time for it.
Yeah.
And they were instantly ruled out. We never looked back. We've never spoken to them again. Just no BS.
Entrepreneurs can do that. Mm-hmm. It's different when it's a corporation. And
absolutely.
Sometimes there's just drama.
I think that's the only advantage to starting your company. It's their own company. It's certainly not the money. It's not the fewer hours. It's not the easy work. It's just that you can just say, I'm not working with them. I'm not doing that. You're wrong.
I'm going to do what I want to do and fits me, right?
Or you're not right for us.
Yeah,
or you're
exactly.
not right for us.
Yeah, I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean it's not, not for us. I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah. I agree, yeah.
Right, yeah. No, I get that. Okay. Who else? Just chime in, anyone.
Yeah. I think everybody thinks, well, what do I do? How do I, what do I do next? Look, massive action trumps planning every time.
Love that.
Make a plan, take action. If the action isn't correct, shift direction a little bit, make minor corrections, but keep going forward. The last 3 or 4 months, there have been really low spots for each one of us. Something that was really, for me as a solo entrepreneur in the past, I've had partners, but I've always shied away from that because it's never worked out well. Having partners this time was a clear-cut factor, definitive factor of me remaining in this position, in this business, and continuing to do this, because we all kind of looked around. We can tell when one person's having a bad day or week or month, and make sure that
pile on.
Make sure
we just pile on.
Yes and no, but yeah, it's nice to have someone there to even just say, "Hey, man, you okay?" Just to ask if you're okay. It makes a big difference that someone noticed and that they care enough to kind of pull you back up by your bootstraps and kick you in the butt. Say, go do what you got to do.
Good stuff. Well, I'll throw one in that you said but didn't really bring up at the last, which is have passion for what you do. So, okay, Tom, you said find good people to work with, and then let each one of you do your thing, right? And Doc, no drama, no BS.
No drama.
You know, just be real, which is what this show is about.
And if you can fake that, you're in.
Yeah, okay.
Fake that.
I'm in. I've been in. I'm so glad. Chef, make a plan. Be ready to shift, but keep going forward and ask once in a while how you doing. I think all of those things are good things.
Keep plotting on.
What fun. I knew it would be fun. And I want our listeners to go to Mojo50 and Spoony.com and listen to these fun people. I also want you to go to my website, www.valerieandcompany.com, and learn more. And there will be something free on that site for you to download and have for yourself. Always. I'm a giver. I think that's I am. I love giving. You know, Zig Ziglar said it, when you give, you get. And that's the truth. So until next time, have a great week and stay authentic.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening. To receive Valerie's voice, free monthly leadership tips, and to learn more about her leadership programs and coaching, visit her website, valerieandcompany.com. Next week, we'll be here again to inspire, engage, and equip you with teachable points of view from successful leaders who have been doing it right. Until then, lead authentically.